Today I'm going to show you how to make some shaker style doors. The doors that I'm making are going to be painted. So I'm using poplar. It's a nice smooth hardwood and it's easy to get anywhere. And then for the center panels, I'm going to use some 1/4 inch MDF. You can see here, these are the cabinets that I'm building. So let me take some measurements and then we'll get to cutting down this poplar.
I bought some 1x8 boards of poplar for this project. The 1-inch thickness in reality is 3/4 of an inch, which is the thickness I want for my door parts. You see here that I'm starting by cutting the boards to length so they're easier to work with. I can rip these down to get the width to 2¼ inches. As for measurements, the stiles will be the height of the cabinet opening, including the frame for full frame overlay doors, which is what I'm building today. The measurement for the rails is a little more difficult. You measure the width of the opening, subtract the width of the stiles times 2, which in my case is 4½ inches. Then you add back 3/8 of an inch on both sides, which will account for the tongues in this tongue and groove door panel. You'll start to see all that come together later. I like to lay everything out to make sure it's all square before cutting the tongue and grooves. We'll first cut the grooves in one side on all 4 door parts. I'm doing this all on the table saw. Set the height of the blade to 3/8 of an inch, which is the depth of the groove. I set the fence so the blade is cutting pretty close to the middle of the part. I like to set up a feather board to keep my workpiece against the fence. Then I run the piece through on edge one way and then flip it and run it through the other way. This should make the cut perfectly in the middle. You can then start tapping the fence toward or away from the blade slightly. Run the parts through until you have a nice fit for your center panel, which you can see here is 1/4 inch MDF. Next up, I need to cut the tongues in the rails. These should fit perfectly both in width and depth. We don't want any gaps. I'll start by cutting a test piece. Remember, the depth of the grooves is 3/8 of an inch, so we want these tongues to go 3/8 inch deep. The width of the tongues is about 1/4 inch, so we'll start a little bit bigger and sneak up on the right cut with a test piece. Once you have the right fit, it's time to cut tongues on both sides on both rails. Now I need to measure the center panel for my doors. The width is pretty easy, as you just measure from tongue to tongue on a rail. I like to subtract 1/8 of an inch for some play. The height is from rail to rail, but remember, you need to add 3/8 of an inch on both sides. Again, I add a little bit of wiggle room. Then just cut the center panel to the measured dimensions. Okay, time to do a dry fit with all our parts. I'm just laying these out and sliding them into place to make sure the glue up goes smoothly. Finally, it's time to glue the doors up. I start by adding wood glue to the tongues and sliding them in one style. I'll slide the center panel in place and make sure everything is aligned. Next, I'll add glue to the other tongues and slide the second style in place. Then just clamp the panels together. This is another good time to check for square. I like to measure corner to corner, and if the two diagonals are equal, then you should be good to go. Now we just let the glue set up and you have your doors ready for painting. Here's a quick look at the doors I'm building on these large cabinets that will go into a laundry room. And that's really it in terms of building these cabinet doors. So really all you need to do now is sand these doors down and prime and paint them. I'd recommend getting like a Kreg jig like this. This is a jig that's good for drilling the holes for the style of hinges that I'm using. I have a frameless cabinet that I'm building, so it's like a Euro style full overlay hinge. This is a great project if you're building a cabinet from scratch, or I don't know, let's say you just bought a house and the vanities in the bathrooms all like old style doors. This is a great project to just update the doors and make the whole vanity look newer and fresher. So yeah, that's it. Consider subscribing if you're into these kind of projects, and I'll see you in the next one.